All right, so you're a screen printer. You know that feeling, right? You're really in the zone, you've got your design, your screens are prepped, everything's perfect.
Yeah, you're ready to roll.
Exactly. And then, bam! These phantom images, these ghost images, pop up out of nowhere to totally mess with your work.
Talk about a print shop haunting.
No kidding. So today we're going on a different kind of ghost hunt. We're not chasing the paranormal, but tackling two frustrating culprits: garment ghosting and screen ghosting.
And let me tell you, these ghosts are trickier than they look. They can turn a perfect print job into a frustrating mess if you're not careful.
Totally agree. Let's start with garment ghosting because, man, this one can be a real head scratcher. Imagine this. You've just printed a killer design on a colored shirt, maybe a nice soft cotton blend. Everything looks crisp, the colors are popping, it's beautiful.
Picture perfect, right?
Exactly. But then weeks later, a faint outline of that same design mysteriously shows up somewhere else on the shirt.
It's like a fashion poltergeist.
No kidding. So what's going on there?
That, my friend, is the classic case of dye migration. You see, certain dyes and fabrics, especially those reactive dyes you often find in those comfy cotton blends, well, they've got a mind of their own. They can actually migrate over time, and what often triggers this, believe it or not, is low-bleed white ink.
Wait, hold on. So the ink designed to prevent bleeding is what can cause bleeding later on. How does that even make sense?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, right? The very thing that's supposed to stop bleeding can actually lead to another kind of bleeding down the line. When ink manufacturers were trying to solve the problem of bleeding, they came up with a solution that, unfortunately, can react with certain dyes over time, especially with a little help from heat and humidity. It's like the perfect recipe for a ghostly image to appear.
So it's not just the ink itself, it's this whole combination of factors: the ink, the fabric, the heat, the humidity. I'm starting to understand why those ghost images love to hang out in print shops.
It's like a perfect storm. You got your 50-50 blend tea, you're using a supposedly safe low-bleed white ink, maybe you rushed the curing process a bit, and that humid air in your shop just seals the deal. Then, weeks later, bam! Those dyes decide to migrate and say, boo.
Okay, that is both super interesting and kind of terrifying. Because this isn't just a minor annoyance, right? We're talking potential disasters for businesses if customers start getting shirts with these surprise ghost images.
Absolutely. It screams printing defect. And that means unhappy customers, damaged reputations, even lost business. It's a risk no printer wants to take.
So we've tackled those pesky garment ghosts, but our work isn't done just yet. Let's move on to a different kind of phantom that likes to hang out in our print shops.
Yeah, these ghosts, they're sneaky. You might not even see them at first.
You're talking about screen ghosting, right?
The one and only.
When you think a screen is perfectly clean, but then bam! You see that faint outline of a past design just clinging to the mesh. It's like those ink particles have a mind of their own, refusing to let go.
It's a printer's worst nightmare. And the crazy thing is, it's totally preventable.
Okay, so how do we stop these screen ghosts?
Well, first you got to understand what we're dealing with. Those microscopic ink particles, they can get trapped in the mesh of the screen, especially if it hasn't been cleaned really, really well.
Ugh, just thinking about those tiny remnants wreaking havoc is giving me the creeps. But seriously, we're talking microscopic here. How much of a problem can those tiny particles really cause?
You'd be surprised. Even the smallest speck of ink can make a big difference. Think of your screen like a stencil, right? Those ink particles, they create these tiny imperfections that can mess with your whole design.
So what, like little pinholes and stuff?
Exactly. They can block the emulsion from coating the screen right during the exposure process, and then you've got yourself pinholes in your stencil, which means uneven ink deposit.
And that spells disaster for a print, right? Especially for those designs with really fine details and halftone.
Oh yeah, forget about it.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do something really intricate like discharge printing or any process printing that requires those subtle color blends, those ghost images can completely ruin the effect.
It's like they have this domino effect, impacting not just the look of the print, but also the technical side of things.
That's why preventing screen ghosting is so important. You got to protect those screens.
Okay, so we've exposed the secrets of these printing phantoms, the ones on garments and the ones hiding in our screens. But here's the good news. We know what we're up against. And that means we can actually do something about it.
Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk strategy. How do we get rid of these ghosts for good?
It all starts with prevention. A little effort up front can save you from a lot of headaches and ruin prints down the road.
I'm all about saving myself from headaches. So where do we begin?
Well, with garment ghosting, Choosing the right ink for the job is crucial. Like if you're printing on 100% cotton, go with inks made for cotton whites. And remember those reactive dyes.
Oh yeah, those tricky devils.
Always, always, always test your inks on a scrap piece of fabric before you go printing a whole run. It's like a sneak peek to see if any ghosts are planning to show up.
Love that. A little insurance policy for your prints. Okay, what else besides the right ink and testing?
Proper curing is key. Got to make sure those inks are getting the right amount of heat for the right amount of time. And don't forget about drying. Those pesky dyes just love humidity. Keep your workspace nice and dry.
So basically, we're creating a hostile environment for those ghosts. No comfy, humid hangout spots for them.
All right, what about our screens? How do we make sure they're squeaky clean and ghost-free?
Diligent cleaning. That's the name of the game. And I mean immediately after every single print run.
No exceptions.
Exactly. Don't even give those ink particles a chance to think about settling in. Your everyday hero is a good screen wash.
Okay, so regular screen wash, got it. But what if we've got some really stubborn stains? The kind that just won't quit.
Haze removers to the rescue. They're like the Ghostbusters of the screen printing world. There are two main types, non-caustic and caustic.
Break it down for me. What's the difference?
Non-caustic is more gentle, great for those fresher stains. Caustic haze removers are the heavy hitters for when you've got some really stubborn gums.
So safety first with those, right? Absolutely. Gloves, eye protection, the whole 9 yards. And here's a pro tip. As tempting as it might seem, never, ever use a pressure washer after using haze removers. That high-pressure water can react with the chemicals, and nobody wants that. Just stick to rinsing with regular water.
Got it. Safety first, always. Anything else we can do to keep those screens in tip-top shape?
Yep, don't forget about drying and storage. After you've cleaned your screens, make sure they dry completely flat, no dust or anything. We don't want any sneaky particles messing things up.
Like a spa day for your screens.
Exactly. Clean, dry, and when it comes to storage, think vertical. Store them upright to avoid any warping or damage.
This has been an awesome deep dive. We've learned how to identify ghost images, what causes them, and most importantly, how to banish them for good.
Prevention is key in the world of screen printing. By adding these simple techniques to your workflow, you can make sure your prints are always top-notch.
And there you have it, folks. We busted those printing myths wide open. Until next time, happy printing, and may your designs always be ghost-free.